Well, I'm Curtis Guilliland. I'm from Somerset, Kentucky. We're people there that came here and established Somerset, Texas, I understand. And I've researched it, and several of the family's members are buried out at Old Rock Church Cemetery. One's at the Jasper, and there's some Edwards, and
Duck.
George Washington Duck.
That's Duck.
And
That's Barbara.
Barbara's
That's her
ancestor.
grandfather,
We
her
saw her
great
son.
grandfather.
Mhm.
he came from Somerset.
Yeah.
And then there's linkage for it, big linkage. There's a church, Fishing Creek Baptist Church, and a church is out in Nancy, Kentucky, just outside of Somerset. I want to say White Oak. A bunch of their members, Baptist members, came here. And I can't remember their names, but I do. There's Coopers and there's Jaspers, and they come out of that old church. I haven't determined whether everyone came from Somerset, come out of that particular church, but I feel like there's a group of Baptists just moved out of this area and set up. Somerset, Kentucky was established around I believe it's 1844. And our church, where I go to church, First Baptist Church in Somerset, established around 17, I want to say 99, but I may be off on that. It was the first church in our county, Pulaski County. And then some of the members, like I said, those people come out of the Fishing Creek Baptist Church and I think White Oak Church in Nancy, Kentucky. And when I was doing all this research, I got into my church also. My church has a membership of about 2,000 members. It goes back, and I love that history. So I went back and copied that history in the process of copying the old memberships and old business back in 1800s. I also found that the pastor there was named Buckner. I believe it was like 1840, 1850. And this doesn't have any relations or have any connection to Somerset, Texas, but the pastor's name was Buckner. And his son went to Dallas, Texas, and established the largest orphanage in the world around 1880, 1890. I think his name was R.C. Buckner. The pastor's name, of course, his dad's name was Buckner. He was baptized. The boy that established the orphanage was baptized in First Baptist Church here in Somerset, and he moved to Dallas and established that orphanage. And also his brother interpreted the Bible for the Greek, or not the Greeks, but the Creek Indians. He put it all down in their language. So that's what come out of Somerset, Kentucky. My family came from Ireland and Scotland, Guillilands. They went to, the farthest back I can get for sure is back in East Tennessee, a place called Newport, Tennessee. Old Rock Church. Was that where the town was actually at?
Yes.
Okay, of course, I've been out there a couple of times.
Yeah.
That's where it was at.
Yeah.
The little house that's next to the cemetery was built by the Grayburg Oil Company.
Okay.
And behind the cemetery was a refinery thing by you can still see the cement foundation back there, you walk back there. And it wasn't a very good foundation, but it's still there.
Okay.
And if you keep walking back there was the house that Liza and Cooper lived in. And it burned down, I guess. I don't know what happened to it. It probably just rotted, I don't know. But she lived there for years, and there's still an old hand-dug well out there. And the man that has the place rented that has cattle on there asked me if I knew where that was, and I said, yes, I know where it is. It's over close to the highway behind the church, between the church or the cemetery and the highway. He said, well, I just found it the other day. And I said, well, if you're clearing stuff and can sort of fence it off so the cattle don't fall in it, I would appreciate it. I said, it used to have really good water, better water than the other hand dug well, which is behind the house. And I told the church that they could, get water out of it if they could find it and get it back to where they could get water out of it. And, cause it's caved off on part of it, on one side of it. And, cause it used to have really good water, and it's probably Edwards water, if it's good.
Well, the town itself there, Somerset, back then, how heavy, how populated was it? Was it 50 people, 100 people, 10 people?
I'd say 100, because if you get that list of the names that were there,
That's about all I've got, unless you've got questions.
You have
Well, I'm a Vietnam vet. I went to Vietnam in 68, 69. And I shot twice, once across the hand, in the hand, and once across the nose. And I got awarded for Purple Heart. And, do you remember Matt? What's his name? He wrote a book about us. And you can look at, maybe find it in the library, it's Charlie Company and what Vietnam did to us. And I'm in that book and interview and all that. And I got involved in the Vietnamese back in 74, 75,
I'm at the meeting.
when a Vietnamese lady came to our post office where I worked at.
You there?
And she sat down on the floor, as is customary as Oriental people just sit on the floor. And she sat there because she seen the American flag. She looking for help. So the postmaster went up and asked me if I could speak Vietnamese, and I could speak a little, so I went and talked to her. And from that, wife and I started working with Vietnamese. They'd probably been 50 or 60 gone through our house, our home. Not literally living in there, but we get as close as my wife's been in the delivery room several times. I bought cars, I bought houses. I've escorted Vietnamese to the United States. I've taken one young man to Vietnam to meet his wife to be he never met before. His family in Vietnam had already chose his wife. So he and I went to Vietnam. And I met his wife at the same time he did. So they came back to the United States and got married. My wife arranged a wedding. And then I met with the Vietnamese ambassador, I've lunched with him. And been to Hanoi, Hilton, where John McCain and all of them are at. I've been in that. But I go to Vietnam. I've been going to Vietnam since '92. I usually go for a month or sometimes a little longer. And in time, I'm also Guilliland, which I speak in the churches when I go and get a chance. So if he tell you that there's no religion in Vietnam, they can't practice Christianity, you tell them Curtis Gilliland said they're lying. Because I went to the colleges in Hanoi, I've worked with the Vietnamese, and then, like I said, I'm a Gideon, I give up. And one thing about Vietnam is the churches are booming. They're packed. They're not like in our home, in our place, or probably your same thing. You get about half of the church are showing up, but these churches over are packed. And now, there's another guy that wrote a book, and I can't, well, I got two more friends. One was the president of Southern Baptist, Bobby Welch. Bobby was a lieutenant, and he was in the jungles of Vietnam and got shot so bad that they gave him up for dead. They piled him in a pile of bodies, just piled him over with these other guys who'd been killed. And the process is threw in a helicopter to take all the bodies out, and they found out he was alive. He came back and became a minister and eventually became the president of Southern Baptist. He's a friend of mine. And then another man who's did you ever hear the Operation Baby Lift in Vietnam?
oh, yeah.
Okay. Betty Tisdale was a friend of mine. Betty passed away a couple of years ago. Betty Tisdale from Washington was in Vietnam, and she and her husband adopted 10 kids. But before that, the country was falling apart, as you remember in April of '75. They were getting, boat people were coming out. There was hundreds, there was thousands coming out. Betty went, and another lady and a few other ladies went to the orphanages and got all these children. And she and this was getting ready to get these children, put them, take them out of the country. Well, she went to the commander. He said no. So what did Betty do? She called his mother. Listen to Betty.
Yeah.
And from that, she got all these kids out, and they made a movie of it. You may have seen it. You may have seen it. Children of Anlac. And Shirley Jones started the movie. But Betty is that type of lady. She seen kids hurting. She went and got them and helped them. And from that, there's a young man who was one of the orphans. He had polio. His mother and dad had just dropped him in the orphanage. And his name was Wah Stone. Wah was one of the little babies. The first plane that went out, the Betty Ranch, crashed. I don't know how many were killed. The second plane went out, my friend Wah Stone was on that plane. And they took him to Australia. Wah went to Australia, got adopted. He got into drugs. His life just got messed up. Wah became a pastor. And Wah went back to Vietnam to see his mother and dad, try to find him. He couldn't find him. But like me and like him, we walked in the streets and we seen his kids down the streets. Literally just laying on the street by themselves. At that time, when I went back in '92, they estimated somewhere around 50,000. I don't know if that's a good figure or not, but that's what they've said. So Wah decided his mission was to stay in Vietnam and take care of those kids. So Wah set up a compound, taking in mentally and physically handicapped kids, and today he's still going. And he wrote a book, Heart of Stone. His name is Wah Peter Stone, or Peter Wah Stone. Heart of Stone is what it is. You can get it probably on Amazon or somewhere. But these are the type of people I've met over there. And it's been a blessing to me. When I went into Vietnam, the chaplain, as you well know if you were in the service, you went in, they had an orientation, and the chaplain got up and spoke to us. And there was, I don't know, 40 or 50 of us young men sitting there. And the pastor, the chaplain says, this will be the best year of your life. If I had a gun, I'd probably shot him. But it changed my life. Because, and this happened later on, when you're walking down the street, and traffic going 2 lanes, just flying by, and you look down and you see a man crawling across the street with one leg and one arm on his stomach. Do you turn your head and walk away, or does it gets to your heart? When I go back to Vietnam, I try to help out a little bit. But what do? You can't sleep when you see that man crawling across the street, and I give it all credit to God. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Thank you so much.